Kristen, and you're listening to Podcast Amplify, a podcast for women entrepreneurs who want to amplify their voice and brand through podcasting and grow a wildly successful business. I'm the executive producer and host of 2 shows and an entrepreneur, and I love helping women grow their visibility, mindset, and business to the next level. Each week, I share tips on how to launch and leverage your podcast, and I'm bringing on the very best business leaders to give you advice on how to build your business empire. Let's amplify your voice and business. Hey, Podcast and Amplify listeners, welcome back to the show. This is episode 1 of season 3. Actually don't know which number this is in the sequence of all the episodes, but I'm really excited to be back again behind the microphone, sharing conversations, sharing some solo episodes. And I thought that it would be really fun to change it up a little bit and to invite someone on to interview me. And I thought, I could just come on and talk about the show and how it's changing from last season to this season and what's new. But I thought it's going to be so much more fun to do it with someone else, someone I love chatting with. So I have Carla Santamaria here. She was actually on the show in season 1. And she talked about becoming your own best advocate in business. She's a career and mindset coach for first-gen career professionals. And she's actually the host of her own podcast. It's called First Gen Coach. And she's on there helping first-gen professionals to really have thriving careers. So welcome to the show again, Carla.
Thank you, Kristen. I am so excited to be back. I'm honored to be having this conversation with you.
So Carla and I have stayed in touch since the first time she was on. So I consider her as, part of my community, and I just love chatting with her. And we actually did a little zhuzhing on her podcast because she had put it on pause, then sort of did a relaunch, and it's fantastic. Like the artwork, the description, the new shows, they're amazing. And so I was honored to help her with that. And I thought, okay, you would be the perfect person to interview me. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you. And before, we dive right in, I just want to say thank you again. It has been, first of all, it's been wonderful keeping in contact and chatting and just, learning and growing from each other. But it was also so fantastic to work with you and to do the VIP offer and to, reflect on my show and help me get unstuck. I was so stuck, and you helped me get unstuck, and you helped me realize what it means to me and why my voice is important. So I just wanted to thank you again for that. It's been such a wonderful, rewarding experience.
Yeah, it's absolutely my pleasure. And you reminded me that part of the reason why I asked you to interview me is because from our work together, I realized how passionate you are about podcasting as your medium for sharing your voice with the world. So I thought, okay, she's going to be a great interviewer. So with that, let's just dive into these questions.
Yes, absolutely. So what can we expect in season 3? I am excited to get a sneak peek. So please tell us, what can listeners expect?
Yeah, so we are recording this a few weeks before season 3 starts. So this is definitely a sneak peek for Carla. But I'm just really excited about, obviously, more fantastic guests. But for the beginning of the season, I'm bringing back my interview series for Latinx Heritage Month, where I solely bring on Latina business owners and women in the personal development space for that month. So between September 15th and October 15th, you're going to hear interviews from some really fantastic Latina business owners and people, really having an impact, who are just killing it out there. So I'm excited to uplift those voices that are so important to me.
Very much looking forward to that.
Also for this season, I realized that I liked business tactics and sharing content around that, but the personal development side was so much more important in a way. Through my own experience, I realized that, there's no one right way to grow your business. And I really felt like you can get the tactics, you can implement any sort of strategy. It's just about what works for you. So there's no one right way. And actually, what's more important is how much you believe in yourself, how much growth you're going through. So those types of topics you'll see a little bit more of.
That is wonderful. And I definitely agree. Strategy and implementation is one thing, but the energy, the mindset, the belief behind that is where results truly come from. That's very exciting. Are there any other changes or updates that you have made for this season?
I am going to start paring back my solo episodes around my podcasting tips. So I'll be doing those every other week.
Okay, great. So it sounds like you have quite a few exciting things going on, but what are you most excited about for this season?
Obviously, I'm always really excited about the conversations that I'm having. I think the topics that I've chosen for this season, I think they're really important, and I think they'll be really impactful for this community. And the guests are just really phenomenal women. And I guess I didn't really have a signature question before. So I wanted to bring one in. And I felt like I'm all about empowering women. So why don't I just ask them what their superpower is? Because everyone has a superpower, everyone. And I have to say, like, as I've been asking people this question, first of all, the guests like it, I can tell. And then to hear someone say their superpower in their own voice and just owning it, for me is like, this is amazing. I love this energy. And I'm hoping that energy, people can feel that when they listen, and that by hearing people own their superpowers, that helps them do it for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and even just the power that being on the receiving end of that question it can have for your guests. Like the first time that someone asked me, what do you love most about being a career coach? Completely stopped me in my tracks. And my answer is still what I use whenever I talk about career coaching. This is a question that I'm personally most excited to ask you. How have you grown as a person, as a podcaster, as an entrepreneur since season 2?
Hey friends, we'll get back to the show in just a moment, but I wanted to take just a few seconds to invite you to a free workshop that I created. It's called Launch a Binge-Worthy Podcast, and it's all about helping you to create a heartfelt podcast that reaches your soul listeners and grows your business. If you want access, just go to podcastamplify.com. It's totally free. Okay, friend, back to the show. I've grown a lot. I've definitely worked with my coach we're always talking about elevating your self-concept.
That's the first time I heard that phrase, elevating your self-concept. I'm going to have to write it down.
Yeah. I mean, when I heard it, I loved it, but I was like, wow, that's really, I don't know. It's like a juicy way to say that. And then when you realize like what goes into it, it's like, oh, wow, this is a lot of work, but I've done a lot of that work. I think it's why I've been able to sort of leverage podcasting to speak on bigger stages. I booked my first paid speaking engagement a couple weeks ago. Yeah. So it's just really, the momentum is building and growing, but that's only because I've been showing up, right, to share my voice. And I've been doing the work around what I think is possible for myself, what I think I'm worth. And so that has changed a lot between last season and this season. And it's something that I'm always working on, right? I love personal growth. As far as a podcaster, I definitely think I've become a lot more confident, because the first interview I had back for season 3, I had construction going on. I had literal like sawing going on as I was interviewing this person,
Wow.
like nails being hammered, dogs barking, like you name it, it happened. And I couldn't reschedule this interview. And I remember thinking, like, you know what? You've got this. Like you've done this before. This isn't your first rodeo. You know some things to like mitigate the distractions, and like it's going to be fine. And I remember thinking back to like my first episode and just being so like perfectionist and so like tense about like, oh, this has to be good and I have to show up a certain way. And I definitely feel more confident in terms of like navigating problems, more confident as an interviewer, and just really trying to show up and feel more relaxed, and generally just to like be more in the flow, like trusting my gut in terms of what kind of content I want to create. Even last season, I was kind of felt like shoulds, like I should have an episode about, whatever. And I did genuinely, I like was interested in those topics, but they didn't always have that full body, like, yeah, I want to talk about that. So I think for this season, I'm trusting that way more.
Wow, that is really empowering. I mean, you talked about trusting yourself both as a podcaster, but then you also, as a growing as a person, you mentioned how you increased, that's not the word that you used, but you said, like you expanded your belief of what was possible for you. And I think that is really, really beautiful, and it's manifesting itself into all these exciting opportunities and into this amazing third season.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think, you're so right. Like the two things just go hand in hand, right? Like it's like you can see how the personal completely affects the business side or the podcasting side. And yeah, it's a good place to be in for sure. So
Great. And with that joyful energy, I want to ask you your signature question. So I know that this is a question you ask of all your guests. So I'm going to do a reverse Uno card and ask you, what is your superpower?
So mine, I think, is really being a growth-minded, curious learner. And I think it's helped me personally to keep evolving and growing and asking the questions, and going from being small and then being more visible and then seeing bigger possibilities, like this wallflower to like a podcaster to speaking on bigger stages to seeing bigger possibilities for myself. And you can't really do that if you're not curious, if you're not asking those questions. And then I think the curiosity also helps me to understand others, right? I'm looking to understand other people's perspectives. I want to know, like, I want to see the world through your lens. Whether or not I agree or not, that's not the point, right? It's just that it gives me a richer understanding of people and how they move through the world. And one of the ways that I love doing that is by helping to tell people stories, learn from others. So I think that's really, if I had to nail it down to one thing, I think that's really what my superpower is.
And you know what? The world needs so much more of that.
So you came with this really great question of asking me how I evolved as a podcaster. And I really want to ask that question back to you. So you came on my show, it was last fall,
Yes.
2021. So it's been almost a year. And I'm curious, how do you feel like you've evolved in that time as a podcaster?
When we had our initial interview, I was not yet a podcaster. I was starting out. I might have been calling myself a confidence coach or a transitions coach. Like I definitely was very early stages of trying to figure out what my voice was in general. And also I was very much in the early stages of telling my story for myself to an audience, so to speak, So I remember being nervous on your podcast, not that you made me nervous or anything, but just the concept of like somebody's asking me questions and I'm like answering for myself. So I was definitely very nervous about that. And I've listened to other podcast recordings that I did around that time. And I was also just very nervous and I just had this nervous laughter when talking about very serious things. I came back and as soon as we started recording, I felt this peace and this calm wash over me. And, we were talking before we hit record, but it was the moment of okay, hot mic and everything's okay. I got this, so that was just really, really beautiful. And the biggest things in which I've evolved. So when I first started my podcast, I did not know what I was doing. Let's just be honest. I didn't know.
Most of us don't.
Right. Thank you. So I ended up pausing it and then I worked with you. And then I also did a lot of internal reflection. And one of the things that you said to me that has stuck with me, and I say it all the time to all my friends now, is to honor your capacity. And I think that that's been the key to my show now, and it's wait, how do I have actually a really great cadence of an episode a week? And I'm actually here honoring my capacity and yet producing some of the best episodes that I've done. And it's because it's definitely coming from this place of feeling good and knowing that whatever I can do, I will do. And whatever I don't have the capacity to do, I don't have to do.
I love that. That you're so right about the energy that you start with is what's going to be infused in the whole process in the final packaged, content. So I love that stuck with you about honoring your capacity. And it sounds like it's really affecting your energy, which is in turn affecting your show. And I can just tell I've listened to a few of your episodes since your relaunch, and there is a calmness. And also when you talk about it, I can tell that there's a shift. There's not the anxiety and the overwhelm. There's more of a peaceful vibe around, just you talking about it. So that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you the signature question for this season. So I want to know, what is your superpower?
My superpower is helping women tap into their strengths. And coming from that energy, again, is what has helped me grow as a coach, grow as a podcaster, because I don't believe that I am bestowing power on anyone, that I am bestowing strength. No, it is internal, and it is really about helping women tap into their strengths. And you know what? My podcast now, it's called The First Gen Coach. At first, it was called Activate Your Potential. It was just internal. I'm a firm believer that we have within ourselves the power to do anything that we want. And my superpower is helping first gen women tap into it.
As you were talking, you're just seeing this visual of you just drawing it out of people, right? Drawing all this potential and magic that they have and just pulling it out, and it just being this really just great feeling for the person who's oh yes, I can see myself in that way now. Thank you for interviewing me. I love this. It was so much fun, and you're a fantastic interviewer. So everyone listening, please listen to Carla's podcast. It is really great. She's so much fun to listen to. And you just got a little taste here. And then I also want people to know how they can get connected with you.
Yes, absolutely. So I mostly hang out on Instagram and LinkedIn. I cannot believe I hang out on LinkedIn, but here we are. I'm a career coach. So I am on Instagram as Carla, the First Gen Coach, and on LinkedIn, just, my first and last name, Carla Santamaria. Definitely, if you listen to my podcast, please let me know. I love hearing people's thoughts and people's just feedback. It really helps me know that I am on the right track and not just, talking to myself. But those are a couple of ways to get involved. I also have a free 21-day career clarity challenge, and I'm happy to share the link with you. So you can just sign up for it. And in 21 days, you will have a bite-sized piece of action and reflection. And, 5 to 10 minutes a day of acting or reflecting, and you will be on your way to career clarity.
That sounds like a really powerful freebie, and I'm really happy to share it in our show notes, as well as all the other ways that people can get connected with you. So thank you again for being on the first episode of season 3 and helping me to kick it off.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for answering these questions and giving us a look into what season 3 is going to hold. I cannot wait to listen.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. So if you found this episode really valuable, I'd love for you to head on over to Instagram and share your big takeaways, any aha moments that you had, and tag me at Podcast Amplify. If you have any questions, make sure to hit me up in the DMs. And if you have any friends or fellow entrepreneurs who you think would get a ton of value from the show, make sure to share this episode with them. Your recommendations and your reviews are really what help grow this podcast, and we are always so grateful for your support. Always remember, your voice and what you have to offer is needed in the world. Until next week, take care.